Unless you've been living under a rock, you've seen it. Valheim. Most of your Steam friends list is probably playing it. Every website has posted at least one article about it, and it is showing no signs of slowing down. It hit 2 million sales in under 2 weeks, and it's just shy of breaking 400,000 concurrent players on Steam. That is, in fact, in the top 10 of all time. All, by the way, with a 96% positive review, which Steam calls overwhelmingly positive, and that's putting it mildly. And if this momentum continues, the likes of PC Gamer will be right in calling this Steam's biggest viral hit, and for the $20 debut game from a tiny Swedish indie, this is undoubtedly an incredible achievement, and one that has already soaked up many hours of our lives. And this is not a game that is driven by influencers or boosted by Twitch culture. No. People are, thankfully, more interested in playing this than watching it. Might sound a bit rich considering my job. There's no external factor here, though, to explain this. No, this is a game that is exploding on its own merits. And on the surface, you could say it's not even that interesting. It is an early access Viking survival game with base building, crafting, PvE progression, and it's set in a procedurally generated land with a low poly art style. In fact, we knew this game was coming for quite some time. Many of us, though, completely forgot about it after its trailer debuted at the PC Gaming Show last summer. Well, how wrong we were. This may age a few of us, but this is the effect. Do you remember when you first logged into old school RuneScape, back when it was just called RuneScape, or maybe Minecraft or Rust, and time just stopped working for you, right? You would check the clock at 8 p.m, 5 minutes would pass, and it would be 2 a.m, but you would find yourself having cleared half of a forest, built a beautiful house in a village full of your friends, and turns out you've established a life for yourself in a new world. Yeah, Valheim has got that kind of time-warping magic going on. Now, that's obviously not a very good explanation. Magic is just, a bit of the science we don't understand yet. But that's what we're going to do today. We're going to work out why everyone is playing Valheim and why it is so damn good. Because that magic time warp effect, it's hit me, and it's pretty spooky. And also, well, here's why you got to check out Skillshare, today's sponsor, which is also where the first 1,000 of you to follow my link in that video description, you'll get a free trial, one that is twice as long, and it's just $10 a month after that. Skillshare is packed with thousands of incredible classes across so much, design, writing, illustration, productivity, all that stuff. But today, I'm going to highlight one that is a real personal favorite of mine, right? Especially if you're working in a field like mine. And it is Productivity for Creatives. Build a system that brings out your best. It is the new class from Thomas Frank. He, of course, has done great stuff over there. You'll have seen him around YouTube as well. And, I think you can see why it's up my alley. Certainly, just relying on willpower and the creative spark, that's a risky proposition, not what you want to do. And if you find yourself slipping up like I did, like over the last few months, then hit this one up. It's awesome. So give this one a shot. I think it's some real important stuff, and you can do so for free, along with all the other classes, with my link down below, and it's just $10 a month after that for everything on Skillshare, which is a lot. Big thanks to them for supporting our channel. And with that said, let's jump into Valheim. Bear with me in this one. Valheim is the PC gamer's Animal Crossing. You might think that's a bit weird, but do you remember how back in March when the lockdowns were starting and Animal Crossing basically just took over everything, everywhere? It was all Animal Crossing. Millions of people retreated into the virtual comfort of meaningful work, financial and social progression, and the unattainable millennial fantasy of being a homeowner. It all happened in Animal Crossing. Of course, a lot of the world is still in lockdown, and PC gamers never got their unifying, comfy retreat. Not until now, with Valheim. When you're in-game, it's got just an incredible atmosphere. It really does. There's nothing better than sitting inside your low-res, low-poly house, by the fire, listening to the rain outside, and, just planning how your village is going to develop, or perhaps gear up tomorrow to take out the next mythical boss. It's pretty compelling. Everything they've done in this game is in service of that sort of Viking survival fantasy, and it is clearly resonating. I mean, the numbers are immense. And that's one part, the fantasy, and they nail that. Now, you've got access in this game to freeform building almost anywhere in a massive world. Now, you do have I'd say, a pretty limited set of options to build with, at least at the outset, but that does mean that everything looks like some variant of just that instantly recognizable sort of Norse housing. And that means that everything fits together in this game. But then it's so easy to embellish what you make and just, make it feel like you. I mean, I went for a 5-floor attempt at something from Grand Designs, which is a UK TV show you've probably not heard of. I won't bother going into how I almost ruined the entire village by trying to dig myself a tunnel to go and prank my friends, but I guess now I just have a dry moat around my place as a consequence. Then Nikki, editor on our Warcraft channel, he went for I'd say, beautiful but simple home. Now then Matt, ever the utilitarian, built a cozy little shoebox. And really it's this idea of personal flair in gameplay that extends into most of the game, including working together as a community. And this is what I really found to be enjoyable. I was focused on building, right? I was doing a lot of chopping wood, building towers, for our settlement. Matt, instead, spent his time upgrading his gear so that he could go out hunting and dungeon crawling in the Black Forest, which was pretty cool when I tagged along with him once. With the Black Forest, it's pretty spooky. Then our fourth, Dickie, he was a little bit more enigmatic with his goals, but, he built us, he has an interesting house. He built an outpost on top of some existing stone ruins, which is a great place for us to rest from our Black Forest trips. It's very cool. So we formed this little 4-person community, and more of our World of Warcraft guild will be moving over there too, and we gravitated naturally towards our own roles within that community. We were engaged, really, with the fantasy that the game promised us in a very natural, not forced way. A game system didn't tell me that I was a builder. It's just the game naturally allowed me to do what felt right. Now, this is still not enough to explain the game's success, so let's get into how it actually plays. And I'd say, to put it simply, I think the likes of Rust walked so that Valheim could run, because what you notice is there's very few pain points that are often found in other survival games in Valheim. It's just smooth. The core gameplay loop is about gathering resources, crafting, exploring, fighting enemies, and every part of that is at least good. It's rarely great in all of its parts, but they're all as good as they need to be. The attack, block, and dodge style of combat just does work. Enemies have got sensible ranges, sensible hitboxes, and very, very simple AI. Using a bow takes long enough that it's great at range but dangerous in melee. All of the bits of combat fit together. For other things, cutting down trees is simple, but once a tree becomes a log, it then becomes a physical object, one that is capable of falling on players, on other buildings, causing some major damage. A log can roll down a hill and kill you. And as a result, multiplayer woodcutting is an amazingly dangerous and fun activity. Building. Building is rudimentary, but there is attention to detail, One of the bits of flair we really loved is that in your house, you need a chimney to vent smoke, or else you won't be able to breathe. Now, this is a simple touch, but it just adds so much to your first home, and it just gives you that, nice smoky fireplace, kind of vibe image, You can really... there's just something that's so, iconic about what your average Valheim house or settlement looks like at night as you see the smoke going up into the sky. It's cool. Now, what I just went through there, the combat and the building and the smoke, that's just a few examples. This is by no means a leader in innovation and revolutionary survival gameplay. Really, it just does the core things right and focuses then on the player experience. It's also a game devoid of friction. Nothing's ever too annoying in this. Eating. It's not something that slaps you. Eating is framed more like a buff than as a punishment for hunger. Your gear then never truly breaks, and it can be repaired for free. You can dismantle building items to get their full cost back. This is the thing where Irongate, the studio, have made tons of decisions that smooth out parts of the gameplay that may pull you out of the fantasy and pit you against the video game. Now that does mean that this is easier, but the thing is the difficulty is not the goal in Valheim. Adversity exists in the game to spice up your survival, not to threaten it. Now, that said, when you first summon Eikthyr, the lightning deer, he is both cool and terrifying at the same time. This even then extends to, well, getting into a game. This is what's so cool. The fact that this runs on peer-to-peer with a very old school community server system, that means that it just works. This is a early access survival game that just works. That's surprising, given some of the past. Connecting to your friend's game just with a password. No logins, no server issues, no nothing, it just works. Hop into a game, use your friend's workbench, borrow an axe or a bow. You can just join their adventure right away with no friction. A lot of thought was just put into how players experience this game, and it shows. I think that's why so many people are picking this up and just clicking with it. There is then one last part of the formula. This doesn't feel like an early access game. I mean, for starters, it's big in an impressive way. The world is really big. It's got a few biomes to progress through. We've put about 6 or so hours into the game, and we're still inspired by the seemingly still far future goal of us going and sailing out to the sea. That's going to be so cool. Then there's almost no jank in this game. Where it exists, it's either charming or inconsequential, but it never gets in the way of your experience. And that's it. So far for us, there's basically been no major bugs that show up to ruin your fun or pull you out of the experience. Nothing that we've encountered anyway. In other games, I would expect touching a physical object to, glitch out and launch me to the other side of the map or create, strange, very game engine-y feeling things. I've rarely seen that happen, and, I have still got myself into some tight spots, but the game just functions. So simply put here, Valheim may not be a technically amazing, incredible game at any front, but it's a game that's got one goal, and that goal is to provide you with a mythical Viking fantasy. And almost every decision they've made in development of this game has supported that. Even in choosing, what to leave as just okay in the overall design of the game. In the same way a Zelda game is built around the satisfaction of adventure, and Dark Souls is beloved for its oppressive and bleak world, Valheim just does its best to deliver a very specific feeling, and it succeeds. It's got that magic, it's got that sense of soul that just makes a game feel right. And this then leaves us with one burning question. How? How did a small indie studio create this perfect storm? Well, this is primarily the story of Richard Svensson. This isn't the tale of some grand adventure, a crazy bet against the odds, or a rags to riches thing. It's actually quite boring, and that makes it, I think, a bit more relatable and inspirational. So Richard Svensson, the CEO of Iron Gate Studios, has no shade to him, remarkably boring employment history. He graduated university in 2009. He became a full-time programmer for Pieces Interactive, the, mostly unremarkable studio with only a few PC games to its name, and probably only one that you've actually heard of or played, which is Magicka 2. He was promoted to lead programmer around 2011, and he worked for almost another 7 years there. And just before he hit his 10th anniversary at the company, he decided, it was his time to leave and start to work on his own game, Valheim. And in 2019, he actually convinced a friend from the company to join him. So they set up Iron Gate Studios, and they continue to craft Valheim into the game that it is today. A few hires for 3D art later, and music, and things like that, and they're still a small studio, but they may as well be on top of the world with, 2 million at least sales? As it turns out, the how of this success is, as Richard said on Twitter, blood, sweat, and tears. Just getting stuck into it. Judging from his past work and roles, he spent nearly 20 years programming and designing games. Then he put a few of those years into his own passion project, and it ended up working. To use a few more of his words, here's the quote: "Valheim has not been rushed. It's a product of more than 3 years of iterative development, with features added and tested on a core team of early adopters." It's kind of just a project that ended up working. As for the amount of content, well, the low poly art style means that, yeah, you can make a ton of assets pretty damn quick, and then you just nail how the lighting sort of looks once, and then it all shines, it all just clicks in together. And on top of that, Richard apparently was great at working on development tools. So that, I think, means that you combine him being able to make great dev tools with the general style of the game, and what does that get you? It gets you fast content creation. In 3 years, they iterated on a small set of core mechanics while creating apparently 90 plus hours of content to do, all based on this polished gameplay loop. And that's it. Richard and his team went to work on the right idea, the right game, right time, and it just all worked. Iron Gate Studios made their own luck, and this is the result. So that's it. Some experienced developers set off to make a small game that they could put a lot of heart and soul into, and the result was the fantastic Valheim, an incredible success. And there are certainly others that I'm forgetting, but there's at least one other game that fits the bill, and it sits as one of the best in its genre too, and that is Hollow Knight. So if our future is going to be filled with these experienced developers then chasing their own dreams, and like with Hollow Knight as well, making projects like these, then we have a lot of good games to look forward to. Go play Valheim and see for yourself. And while you're going, check out that description box, hit up Skillshare, today's sponsor. With that link, first 1,000 of you will get double the length of the regular trial. And with that, seriously, that Thomas Frank class, some top-notch stuff. And also just, recommendation, Thomas Frank, great guy, great channel, good stuff. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the video. Check out Skillshare, support us, and with that said, I'll see you next time.